second video, we will talk a little bit about the speaker. So because most people know the Burmester for their electronics,
yes,
and not so many know about the speaker itself. And in this year here in Munich, you guys also introduced the new speaker, the BX100. So can you explain a little bit about its difference, not only in visually, but also comparing to the current generation of speaker like the BC or the B speaker?
Okay, so as you know, until this year we had the B series with B18, 28 and 38, and the BC series with BC150 and BC350. And there was a huge gap between those products, between the B38 and the BC150. So there was a demand from the market to fill those gaps. So the BX100 is the first part of the answer. There will be a second part of the answer a bit later. But the BX100, price-wise and size-wise, comes down one step under the BC150. BX100, the name comes from a speaker that you may remember, the B100, that was a really successful product for Burmester quite a number of years ago. So it is, a quick look in the rearview mirror at the tradition, and at the same time looking into the future very much because it integrates technologies that we've never used before. First and foremost, the one that gave the name to the speaker, BX100, you can see from the front baffle that the front really...
Yes, it creates an X.
Yeah. It does create an X visually, because the tweeter, the AMT tweeter, is completely floating. It's not touching the baffle in any way. There's air all around it. What that does is that it gives that AMT ideal conditions to work in terms of dispersion, directivity, and so on. So that gives you a speaker at the end of the day that resolves in a way that is completely unique. It sounds, well, you get that Burmester sound, of course, that foundation of the Burmester sound from that speaker, but it really has something extremely special in terms of how it creates the sound stage, how it organizes it, and how it focuses on each interpreter in the music.
So let's go back a little bit about the B series speaker as well, because obviously the B series speaker will introduce a lot of music lover into the Burmester speaker sound, and I think it's a huge success. But with the new series of the B18, B28 and B38, I think it's probably the first time that Burmester ever used wood in a speaker. Obviously, I believe the previous model, all of them are used aluminum. But now with the new B series, you see there was wood. Also combined with the front baffle of the mid and tweeters is aluminum. So can you explain a little bit about this inner working and what is different, what changed?
What we're trying to achieve at Burmester when it comes to cabinet making is to have a cabinet that is as inert as possible. We want the cabinet to be a mechanical reference for the drivers to work. That's really what we're looking for. So when we use wood like this, we don't just use MDF, we use HDF, which is about twice as dense, and we use extremely thick sections of it, and very tough, very stiff internal bracing as well. As for the bottom of the speaker, it completely isolates the rest of the cabinet from the ground by using about 50 millimeters thick of HDF and a sandwich of materials, so that mechanically it's very close to mechanical decoupling.
So let's talk a little bit about the difference between the B and the BC series. Currently, Burmester speaker lineup only consists of B and BC series, and obviously from the looking of it, everyone knows the visually striking difference between those two speakers. And also, but they share a lot in common as well, especially for something like the AMT tweeter or this mid-woofer as well. So can you share a little bit about the technology, the inner working, the difference between those two series, and how it's different in terms of sound?
Yes. Well, let's start with the obvious, with the what we use as a tweeter. That's really a trademark for Burmester. We use AMT, air motion transformers for treble in pretty much all of our speakers, with the exception of the B18. In terms of differences, of course, the BC150 and the BC350 are much larger models than the B series. They are reference and signature line speakers. But the real difference in terms of the concept is well, how they're designed. And one of the big differences is that on the BC series you also have a tweeter at the back of the speaker that you can adjust, and that will give you more or less depth depending on your room and depending on what you're looking for. And on a speaker like the BC350, you have a switch that allows you to toggle between two modes. One is the pure mode, in which you only have one mid-range driver that works, and the power handling is a bit lower, but it's the purest sound you can get. And the other one is the live mode with a bit more bass, a bit more punch and impact. So they're really completely different series, to be honest. What they share in common is the kind of work that goes into the design and the no corners cut kind of approach from the cabinet to the drivers to the crossovers or the internal wiring.
So let's delve a little bit about the back of the speaker as well, because obviously from the B series you have the room adaptation, there's a switch behind it, and then there's going on to BC series, going to the BC series you have the rear tutor level. So I was wondering, is that providing the customer that optimization for their room, for their listening, or is it affect only the crossover part, or is there any adjustment behind it?
Okay, so let's start with the technical. It only affects the crossover part.
I see.
Very simply. What it does in most cases is that it does play with the bass response. So at the end of the day, it's a question of your room, and it's a question of your taste as well. In a lot of cases, if you ask in the US, for example, they will usually, give that little notch up in the bass to have a bit more foundation and a bassier kind of result. If you ask our friends in Japan, for example, it will be the other way around. So there's room adaptation, there's adaptation to taste, and there's adaptation to, I wouldn't say musical culture, but audiophile tastes on different, in different regions.
So obviously every room is different, as we saw today, and obviously everyone has a different taste as well. So I think that Burmester provides customer with a lot of customization that not usually appear on a speaker is, I think, very commendable.